Psalms chapter 78. My people, give ear to my Torah. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I open my mouth in a parable. I utter riddles of old, which we have heard and known, for our fathers have related them to us. We did not hide them from their children, relating to the generation to come the praises of Yahweh and his strength and wonders which he has done. For he raised a witness in Yaakov and set a Torah in Israel, which he commanded to our fathers to teach them to their children, that it might be known to a generation to come, to children who would be born, to rise up and relate them to their children, and place their trust in Elohim and not forget the works of El, but watch over his commands, and not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation. A generation which did not prepare its heart, whose spirit was not steadfast to El. The children of Ephraim, armed bowmen, turned back in the day of battle. They did not guard the covenant of Elohim, and they refused to walk in the Torah, and they forgot his deeds and his wonders which he had shown them. He did wonders in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Mitzrayim, in the field of Zoan. He split the sea and caused them to pass through. He made the water stand up like a heap, and he led them with a cloud by day, and all night with a light of fire. He split the rocks in the wilderness, and made them drink as from the great depths, and brought forth streams from the rock, and caused waters to come down as rivers. Yet they sinned still more against him, and rebelled against the Most High in the desert. And they tried El in their heart, by asking for food according to their desire. And they spoke against Elohim. They said, Is El able to set a table in the wilderness? Look, he struck the rock so that the waters gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Is he able to give bread also? Would he provide meat for his people? Therefore Yahweh heard, and he was wroth. So a fire kindled against Yaakov, and displeasure also came against Israel. Because they did not believe in Elohim, neither did they trust in his deliverance. Yet he had commanded the clouds above, and opened the doors of heaven, and he rained down manna on them to eat, and he gave them the grain of the heavens. Men ate bread of the mighty. He sent them provisions to satisfaction. He made an east wind blow in the heavens, and by his power he brought in the south wind. And he rained meat on them like the dust, and winged birds like the sand of the seas, and let them fall in the midst of his camp, all around his dwelling place. So they ate and were completely satisfied, for he brought them what they desired. They were not estranged from their desire. Their food was still in their mouths, when the wrath of Elohim came against them, and he killed among their fat ones, and struck down their choice ones of Israel. In spite of all this, they still sinned, and did not believe his wonders. So he ended their days in a breath, and their years in trouble. When he killed them, then they sought him, and they returned, and did earnestly seek El. And they remembered that Elohim was their rock, and the Most High El their Redeemer. But they flattered him with their mouth, and they lied to him with their tongue, for their heart was not steadfast with him. And they were not true to his covenant, but he, the compassionate one, pardoned crookedness, and did not destroy them. And many times he turned his displeasure away, and did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a passing breath that does not return. How often they rebelled against him in the wilderness, and grieved him in the desert. And again they tried El, and provoked the set-apart one of Israel. They did not remember his hand, and the day he redeemed them from their adversary. How he worked his signs in Mitzrayim, and his wonders in the fields of Zoan. He turned the rivers into blood, and they could not drink their streams. He sent swarms of flies which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. He gave crops to their caterpillars, and labor to the locusts. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave their beasts over to hail, and their livestock to bolts of fire. He sent them the burning of his displeasure, wrath and rage and distress. The deputation of the messengers were evil. He made a path for his displeasure. He did not spare their being from death. He gave their life over to the plague, and he struck all the firstborn in Mitzrayim, the first fruits of strength in the tents of Ham. Then he made his own people go forth like sheep, and led them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely, and they did not fear. But the sea covered their enemies, and he brought them to the borders of his set-apart place, this mountain which his right hand had gained, and drove out nations before them, and allotted them a measure inheritance, and made the tribes of Israel dwell in their tents. Yet they tried and rebelled against the Most High Elohim, and did not guard his witnesses. But they turned back and acted treacherously like their fathers. They twisted like the treacherous bow. They enraged him with their high places, and moved him to jealousy with their carved images. When Elohim heard this, he was wroth, and greatly despised Israel. He left the dwelling place of Sheol, the tent which he had set among men, and he gave his strength unto captivity, and his comeliness into the hands of the adversary. And he gave his people over to the sword, and he was wroth with his inheritance. His young men were consumed by fire, and his maidens were not praised. His priests fell by the sword, and their widows could not weep. Then Yahweh awoke as one to sleep, as a mighty man who shouts because of wine. And he struck his adversaries backwards. He put them into everlasting reproach. Then he rejected the tent of Yosef, and did not choose the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Judah. Mount Zion, which he loved, he built his set-apart place like the heights. He set the earth, like the earth, he founded it forever. And he chose David, his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. He brought him in from tending the ewes, to shepherd Yaakov his people, and Israel his inheritance. And he shepherded them according to their integrity of his heart, and led them by the skills of his hands.